everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we are diving deep into a brilliant piece of legal scholarship that completely shatters how we look at global economics and geopolitics. If you open any financial newspaper today, whether it's the Financial Times or the Wall Street Journal, you will constantly see headlines about governments blocking foreign company takeovers. We see the US banning certain tech investments, the European Union tightening its borders against foreign capital, and countries worldwide raising massive regulatory walls. The common narrative out there is that this is a completely brand new phenomenon. We are told that before the COVID-19 pandemic, before the rise of the digital economy, and before the current US-China trade war, the world was a borderless utopia of free trade. We are led to believe that investment screening is just a sudden panic response in modern crises. But what if I told you that this narrative is fundamentally wrong? Today, we are reviewing a groundbreaking 2026 article published in the Journal of World Investment and Trade by Dr. Kehinde Folakik Olaoye, titled The 70-Year Filter: Securitization Trends in Investment Screenings. Olaoye's central thesis is mind-blowing but meticulously proven. Investment screening is not a modern anomaly. It is as old as modern international investment law itself. What we are witnessing today is not the birth of a new tool, but the ultimate legal transformation of an old one. Over the next 10 minutes, we are going to dissect this 70-year history and look at how the world shifted from open markets to what the author calls calibrated sovereignty. Let's get into it. To understand Olaoye's argument, we first need to define what an investment screen actually is. Think of it as a gatekeeper. When a foreign company wants to buy a domestic business, build a factory, or invest in critical infrastructure, the host government does not just say yes automatically. They run that investment through a filter. Now, why do they filter it? This is where Olaoye introduces the most critical concept of the paper, the paradigm shift from economics to security. Historically, meaning from the 1950s all the way to the late 2000s, when a country screened from foreign investment, they did it for economic reasons. They wanted to protect their balance of payments. They wanted to ensure domestic industries grow, or they wanted to make sure foreign capital was actually helping local development. The justification was rooted in economic self-sufficiency. But look at what has happened over the last decade. The mechanics of the filter remain the exact same, but the legal justification underneath it completely flipped. Governments stopped arguing about economic development and started arguing about national security. Olaoye brilliantly shows that this shift was not accidental. It was a conscious legal evolution. The paper maps out 5 distinct eras over the last 70 years, moving from what she calls the screen door regimes of the post-war era to the vestigial screens of the 90s legalization boom, and finally to the precision lenses of the 2020s. Let's break down these eras, because the historical irony here is absolutely wild. Let's travel back to the 1940s and 1950s. The world was recovering from World War II. During this era, screening was everywhere, but it was ballooned. Olaoye highlights Japan's 1950 foreign investment law as a prime example. Back then, Japan screened everything coming in to ensure it wouldn't hurt their fragile post-war economy. Even the United States, through the Marshall Plan, engaged in outbound screening to make sure American capital was being used efficiently in Europe. There was no apology for this. In fact, Olaoye quotes Sir Benijal Rama Rao, the governor of the Reserve Bank of India in 1953, who beautifully summarized the mindset of that era. He said, "Screening is not an obstacle, but a safeguard. Now, here is where the massive historical irony, the role reversal, comes into play, and this is one of the strongest sections of Olaoye's paper. During the 1960s and 70s, it was the developing nations, the global south, that were obsessed with investment screening. Newly independent nations in Africa, Asia, and Latin America set up investment boards. Why? Because they were terrified of neocolonialism. They feared that giant Western corporations will come in, buy up their natural resource, and dominate their economies. So the global south used screening as a shield for economic development. And what did the developed Western nations do back then? They complained. The US and Europe campaigned the gospel of liberalization. They argued that foreign capital should have free entry without restrictions, and that screening was an unfair barrier to trade. But fast forward to 2020s, open up the news today. Who are the loudest advocates for aggressive, strict, and unyielding investment screening now is the US, the UK, the European Union, and Australia. The global north has now adopted the protectionist anxieties that the global south had 50 years ago, except instead of calling it anti-colonialism or economic development, the global north calls it protecting national security and safeguarding critical infrastructure. The ideological tables have completely turned. To prove that national security has always been lurking in the background of investment law, Olaoye unearths a fascinating historical case file from 1968 that many modern economists have completely forgotten, Fruhauf v. Massardi. This case is like a geopolitical thriller. Fruhauf was an American corporation that owned a majority stake in a French subsidiary company. This French company signed a massive contract to deliver trailers to Guizhou, Communist China. Remember, this was 1968, the height of the Cold War. The United States government got furious. They invoked their domestic law, the Trading with the Enemy Act, and ordered the American directors of Fruhauf to force the French subsidiary to cancel the contract with China. The French minority shareholders were threatened. If they cancel the contract, they will be sued into bankruptcy in France. So they took the case to the French courts. The French court looked at this and basically said, we cannot allow American domestic law to dictate the economic survival of a French company on French oil. The court appointed a temporary administrator to ensure the contract with China was fulfilled. Why does Olaoye bring up this case in a 2026 paper? Because it marks a pivotal historical moment. It proved to European nations that foreign investment from superpowers comes with strings attached. It showed that foreign corporate ownership could be used as a political weapon. This single case acts as a massive catalyst for European countries to start thinking about their own investment screens, not just to block adversaries, but to protect themselves from the legal overreach of their own allies. So, how did we get to the hyper-securitized world we live in today? Olaoye points to two major turning points in recent history. The first was the 2008 global financial crisis, when the Western financial system collapsed. State-owned enterprises and sovereign wealth funds from emerging economies started buying up distressed Western assets like ports, energy grids, and tech companies at discount prices. This triggered what Olaoye calls a post-liberal awakening. Governments suddenly realized that blind liberalization could mean losing control of their core survival infrastructure. This led to the 2009 OECD guidelines, which tried to bring the rule of law to screening, the OECD basically said, look, we know you need to screen for security, but keep it transparent, predictable, and proportional. The second and final catalyst was the 2020 European Union FDI screening regulation. This caused what scholars call the Brussels effect. The European Union did not create a centralized screening board, but they forced every single member state to build their own mandatory screening laws. It standardized the practice globally. Suddenly, screening went from being an exceptional emergency break to a routine, mechanized part of doing business. But here is the absolute climax of Olaoye's paper, the legal masterpiece of her analysis, the treaty sale. Historically, if a government blocked a foreign investment arbitrarily, that foreign investor could sue the government under an international investment agreement or via investor-state dispute settlement, demanding hundreds of millions of dollars in damages. To prevent this, Olaoye highlights a brilliant new trend in international treaty making. States are now writing explicit ISDS exemption shields directly into the text of their trade agreements. For example, look at Annex 13C of the 2020 Australia-UK Free Trade Agreement, or the annexes within the CPTPP. They explicitly state that any decision made by a government to block an investment based on national security screening laws cannot be challenged in an international tribunal. It is completely immune to ISDS. This means sovereigns have successfully insulated their gatekeeping power from international legal accountability. They have created a legal shield that allows them to exclude anyone they want completely legally without fear of financial retaliation. So, what is my ultimate takeaway from Kehinde Folek Olaoye's 2026 article? Personally, I think this paper is a masterpiece of legal archaeology. By digging up the last 70 years of history, Olaoye successfully disproved the naive myth that we once lived in a perfectly free economic world that was suddenly broken by modern politics. She proved that sovereignty never actually left the building, it just changed its outfit. If there is one minor critique I have of the paper, is that I wish the author spent a bit more time exploring the perspective of middle-income developing countries today, who are trapped in the crossfire of this new global not protectionism. When the West raises these massive screening walls, it distorts global capital flows, and developing nations are often forced to take sides. But overall, the conclusion of this paper is an absolute wake-up call for anyone studying international business or law. Olaoye states that we are entering the era of the end of apology. The old, comforting illusions of neutral, apolitical global market regulation are dead. We have entered a permanent state of calibrated sovereignty, where strategic exclusion, outbound investment screening, and national security are the new normal. If you want to read the full paper, I've left the citation and link in the description box down below. What do you think? Is this rise of intense investment screening a necessary protection for national security? Or is it just disguised protectionism that's going to kill global innovation? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you.